Hi there, this is Jessica, and today I'm going to be presenting a lesson on rock transformation, specifically focusing on weathering and erosion. So, for starters, my target audience is English language learner students. Their primary language and their first language that they speak at home is Spanish. It's in a low income neighborhood on the southwest side of Chicago, and the grade level that I teach is seventh grade. So if you're focusing over here, you can see the demographics of my school and of my students are 97.4% Hispanic, 2% Black, 0.1% white, and 0.5% other. Um, Statistically, 93.8% of my students are low income, 7.7% are diverse learners, 62% are limited English learners, and then the mobility rate is 10% and the truancy rate is 11%. So the objectives for the lesson today are that the student will be able to describe the three main types of rocks and the processes by which they are changed. The other objective is that students will be able to differentiate between the different types of weathering and erosion, and they will be able to give examples of each. So this second objective is the main one that you're going to hear about and the one that is focused on most as students are exploring what weathering and erosion looks like in real life. They're making some real life applications. These objectives are formed around the next generation science standards. So the standard that the focus will be today is MS ESS 2-2. So students will be able to construct an explanation based on evidence for how geoscience processes have changed the Earth's surface at varying times and spatial scales. So examples of geoscience processes include surface weathering and deposition by the movements of water, ice, and wind. So this lesson is really cool because it really tailors specifically to this standard as students investigate weathering and deposition by those movements, which I think is really cool. So I'm going to tell you now about some connections to the learning theories and the course content. So the one that I started with as I created this lesson was habits of mind. So a couple that just naturally seemed to flow with this lesson were gathering data through all of your senses and responding with wonderment and awe. So students are prompted to gather data in multiple ways using all of their senses as they engage in reading. They're going to be annotating some texts. They can be going on a virtual field trip via Google Classrooms, which is my favorite part of this lesson. It's really cool. They can create a web quest. They can go through that and gather a lot of data through that as they explore the rock cycle and the weathering and erosion. So they're also prompted to be amazed and have fun. That's why I said I really like this lesson because they're having a fulfilling experience as they virtually travel to locations all over the world. They're viewing different natural wonders. They go to the Grand Canyon, which is cool because a lot of my students have not been there. Another connection to the learning theories that we studied in this course were the multiple intelligences theory. So this is something that I've really taken from this course as I think differentiating to different types of intelligences is how we're going to best serve our students. So the multiple intelligence theories that I addressed in this lesson were linguistic. So students may read and annotate a tiered to their Lexile level a text about the objective. Visually, if students are visual learners, they can go on this virtual field trip and they can actually see the different types of rock formations and how they have been weathered and eroded, like in real time, because it's a street view using Google Maps, which is really cool. Logically, students who are logical, they may choose that web quest as it's kind of more of like a self-guided thing. It almost acts as a push activity because it allows students to figure things out for themselves. They're scaffolded by me because I created the quest, so I kind of have prompted questions and things like that to push their knowledge and to help them apply things that they've already learned. And then interpersonally, students can complete any of these activities with the person next to them, and their seating arrangements are based on their learning levels. They're homogeneous so that they're with someone that they can converse with who's near their level so they can push each other with questions. Social and emotionally, I make connections in this unit. I wouldn't say specifically in this lesson, but in this unit, I speak to this because the whole lesson is about rocks and how they move. So students, there's a whole part of the unit where they investigate natural disasters that occur from the movement of plate tectonics in Mexico near the Jalisco Block in Guadalajara, which is really cool because a lot of these students are from those locations in Mexico or they have family there. So it connects to them and it kind of promotes in them that social emotional aspect because it prompts them to like care about the people who are there. They create a tsunami warning system to help the people living in countries near a plate boundary. Um, so I think it kind of promotes a real world application. So the agenda for the lesson, we're going to start with the hook video. I'm not going to show it for time's sake, but this is a little screenshot I took of the video. It's a weathering and erosion crash course, which I really love those. So it just kind of is a review because this is an application lesson. So students have already learned these concepts and they're going to use this as an application of what they already know. So we're going to start with that just as a reminder. And then the second thing we're going to do, which is going to take up the remainder of the time before the exit ticket, is a student choice board. So students are going to have the option of 3 different activities so they can pick. And then they can also pick if they either want to work independently or if they're going to work with someone next to them in a pair, completing the same activity and turning and talking and asking questions. So activity 1 is a differentiated annotated reading on erosion, and it's paired to the question set, and the students are also going to have an annotation guide as they do that. Activity 2, you're going to see right here, it's a virtual field trip via Google Maps to view real-world weathering and erosion around the world. And students are going to access a document, which is it's on Google Classroom. So I'm a science teacher, so I love promoting green and go green and less printing. So this whole thing is done via Google Classrooms, which is really cool. And then activity 3, also promoting the Go Green, is a web quest exploring the rock cycle. And students are going to be able to explain how weathering and erosion are processes that change the rocks and change them into new rocks over time. So just to give you a little bit further information, here's activity 1. So these texts come from Newsy ELA, which I really like because obviously I have students that are at all different reading levels. These are screenshots of the text. If you're looking right here, you can see it says the Lexile level is maxed out, so it's about a 1300 reading level. But I also have students who read it more of like a 500 or a 600 reading level in the 7th grade. So it's nice because this comes in English and Spanish and also can be tiered to whatever Lexile the students are at. So they're going to be answering these questions at the end, and as they read, they're going to be using this guy right here as an annotation guide. So starring what's important, underlining keywords, what are you unfamiliar with? And another thing we do is, because I teach ELL students, we do cognates. So students, if they see a word that is similar in English and Spanish, they will write the cognate down, so in English or Spanish, which is a way for them to connect to things that they already know and make the learning a little bit deeper for them. Activity 2 is a virtual field trip. So students are going to go to Google Maps. So it's really cool because what they do is each of these links that you see on this worksheet takes them to a different place in the globe where they're going to see mechanical weathering, and there's also an aspect of chemical weathering and physical weathering. So they're going to be recording their observations, which is a big part of the next generation science standards. Where did the link take you? Like, what was a national park? What did they see? What caused the weathering that they saw? Was it wind? Was it rain? Was it ice? Was it snow? And then is there any evidence of the rock being eroded? So they're looking at abrasion, they're looking at ice weathering, ice wedging. So it's a cool way for them to make applications there. And here's an example I screenshotted from, it's from the first link right here, link 1. So if you go down, this is link 1. So this is really cool. It takes you to Bryce Canyon National Park, which I have never been to, but really want to go to. But as you can see, there is evidence of erosion and weathering here in this national park. So students can use this guide to decide if it was mechanical weathering of abrasion or ice wedging. So they're going to be looking at it. This is a good one for them to do with a partner because it is a little more difficult because they're looking at real life examples so they can discuss with each other. Here's activity 3, So activity 3 is a web quest, and it's exploring the rock cycle, and they're going to explain those rock processes. So they're going to go to this BBC educational guide, and there's also a tiny URL for convenience sake if I need to post that in my Google Classroom. But they're going to be navigating through 5 different aspects of that BBC article, which is all about weathering. How is it caused? Do plants cause weathering? I like it too because all of these activities are really awesome because they speak about all the different types of weathering and erosion, like chemical weathering, physical weathering. You can see in tab 2 and tab 3. Each of the activities, while very different in how the students are going to be applying what they already know, hit on all of the same features of weathering and erosion. So I feel really lucky that all these resources that I was able to find them, because I think it's just cool to be able to serve the kids in different ways like this. Is that we spoke back to like the learning styles. Let me see, I'm going to go back to like the multiple intelligence theories. So like, how do kids learn? Are they linguistic? Are they visual? Are they logical? How are they, like, what habits of mind are we using? So I just think it's cool that all of these activities cater to the different needs of students. And then as an exit ticket, students are going to, when they complete it, they're going to independently demonstrate their understanding of the objectives by completing this check for understanding. So this activity, when I have taught it before, has actually taken 2 days, because to get the kids set up, to let them choose, it's taken 2 days. So this is actually nice, because if the lesson does end up taking 2 days for the students to get through these choice boards, they'll have a little more time to do this exit ticket. So what they're doing is they're cutting out these pictures in the description. So for example, the first box says, rain washes away soil and moves it downhill, not downtown. So they're trying to decide, is that weathering, is that erosion, or is that deposition? And they will cut it out and they will paste it in these boxes. So this is also nice because this exit ticket looks like the lesson. Like, these pictures look like what they're going to see in the web quest, in the virtual field trip, and in the text that they read. So it's kind of a good gauge of understanding, because it does look like what they just did, but now they're having to apply it by themselves. So it's a good way for me to check in on understanding, see where I might need to reteach or reweave in some different aspects of the standards that was not clarified for the students. And then that would end the lesson, that exit ticket. They would submit it and the lesson would be over. And the last thing I want to talk about is just kind of the why behind this lesson. The why behind this lesson is that it promotes student engagement by offering choice. I think when students are able to like pick what they're doing, it allows them to take ownership of their learning. And I think too, if they're not on task or something, you can say, hey, you chose this. So if you don't like it, you could choose something else, but you chose this. So make sure you're owning that, because you did get to choose. I want to see you fully participating. My second bullet says that students can select an activity that best serves their learning style while all still learning about the same topic, which is something I kind of hit on before. It's nice that they can all be reviewing and applying the same concept, but in totally different ways. So every student in the class could be doing something different, but they're all learning the same objective, which is really cool. My third bullet says students will work with a partner to promote collaboration and clarification with peers before asking the teacher questions. So having this be an opportunity where students can either work by themselves, which if their learning style is more of like an independent thing, that's fine and that's acceptable. But if they want to work with someone else, if they're more of like a social learner, then they can collaborate and they can ask each other questions before they ask me. We say in my classroom, 3 before me, ask 3 people around you before you ask the teacher. So that is the conclusion of my lesson. So it was a really great lesson. I've taught it before. I'm going to teach it again this year. So that was Rock Transformations, Weathering and Erosion by me, Jessica Johnson. So I hope you enjoyed that, and my students really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.